An instructor at the University of Oklahoma has been placed on leave after a student complained that she received a failing grade on a paper that cited the Bible to assert that the belief in multiple genders was demonic. Samantha Fulnecki, 20, who is now in a historical figure that will be remembered as an idiot for all time, well done, Samantha, filed a complaint with the administration, the latest flashpoint in the ongoing debate over academic freedom on college campuses amid President Trump's push to end diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and restrict how campuses discuss issues of race, gender, and sexuality. Quote, OU remains firmly committed to fairness, respect, and protecting every student's right to express sincerely held religious beliefs, unquote, the university wrote in an email on Wednesday. What is the class? It's a psychology class. The assignment was for a psychology class about lifespan development. Students were asked to write a 650-word response to an academic study that examined whether conformity with gender norms was associated with popularity or bullying among middle school students. Now, the thing that you will notice about this prompt here, this assignment, is that there is no universe in which saying that belief in multiple genders is demonic serves to answer the question. You have a severely limited word count. 650 is not a lot. I think you're looking at what? 1,000 words, I think, is 3 pages, double space, 12 font. I think, if memory serves. 650 is like 1 page. So the area cost, the amount of real estate that argument that the belief in multiple genders is demonic is incurring is high. That's a big chunk of your essay. Demonic possession and demonic influences are not a valid area of psychology. They're not a valid explanation for psychological conditions. They are certainly not a valid basis to make inferences about whether or not gender norms are associated with popularity or bullying among middle school students, which would be a statistical and psychometric issue. Like, this is really, that's astonishingly dumb. You do not want students in psychology thinking, oh, these psychological elements that are really important to society, they are the result of the influence of force spacers. They are the result of the influence of thetans. And you actually engage in that respect of different religions that is being cited here, and you start replacing demons with jinn, with gremlins, and so on and so forth, with Loki. You stop respecting it very fast. It starts to look really stupid, because it is. But this teacher was put on leave for failing a student. But here's the thing. Volnecki wrote that she was frustrated by the premise of the article because she doesn't believe that there are more than 2 genders based on her understanding of the Bible, according to a copy of her essay. We can read the essay. We can read the essay. Dear God, I look terrible right now. You can tell I haven't slept in like 3 days. You can read the essay. We can read this essay. Oh my God. Quote, society pushing the lie that there are multiple genders and everyone should be whatever they want to be is demonic and severely harms American youth, she wrote. Why would you think you know? Did we forget that this is a student? Like, why is the like, here's the thing, and this is what people really don't understand. This is what people who don't go to university don't understand. This is what a lot of perpetual victim complex religious people in America don't understand. The classroom is not a soapbox. You are not in a contest to win an ideological conflict with your teacher. You are there to fulfill the conditions of getting a grade for that course, so you demonstrate that you understand the basics of that field so that you are useful afterwards. But you will have assholes make movies like God's Not Dead, in which the entire premise is this arrogant shithead student is debating this spoof caricature of a philosophy professor. By the way, no philosophy professors are even interested in these questions. on the existence of God and says, "Oh well, God allows evil because of free will," and the professor at the end just admits, "Yes, I don't believe in God because He took everything from me," which is like, well, then you do believe in God, which is the psychological twist.
At Thephysics Gamer 123 super chatted $10.
Ooh.
Turning Points posted
Ooh.
the full essay, a portion of the rubric, and the teacher's feedback on their Twitter.
I'll have to look at that. Present Sunday, can we get a link for your Discord? It is in the description, is it not? You should just be able to go down to the bottom of the screen, click on See More, not Seymour Skinner, like Seemore, and you should be able to just join from there. But I digress. It's like the university isn't a place where people go to learn with other people and to take instruction. No, the university is a battleground for the soul of mankind, and you child who grew up with your parents watching Fox News, filling your head with the idea that you are an embattled rebel against a dominant counterculture that for some reason doesn't actually hold any power and is completely overwhelmed by politicians and billionaires who are all unanimously against it. You need to go into the university system and you need to beat those professors. You're not there to learn, you're there to win. Which is really stupid. It's really stupid. I want to see this essay. Oh God, in an interview with KWTV, I don't know what that is, embarrassingly perhaps, Folnecki said she believes that she deserved a perfect score. The virtue of modesty is still alive and well in American Christian culture, I see. Quote, "We have been getting these papers all semester, and I've written them all the same," she said, "and I've gotten 100 on all of them up till this point." You've written them all the same. The essays were graded out of 25 points, broken down by whether the student demonstrated an understanding of the article and addressed a specific aspect of the argument put forth. Folnicki received 0 points for her work. Well, possibly because you're a bigot, and as soon as gender was mentioned, you threw all academic standards out the window. So maybe there's a particular reason why. Sort of like how maybe a racist student, up until they start talking about the history of slavery, maybe they do okay. The essay is out there. You can read it. Let's do that. Let us do that. Folnicki essay. The original text. Okay. I think I found it. Why would Turning Point... I guess we know why Turning Point USA would publish this, because they're stupid and they're evil. And I like that. I like stupid evil people. I'd be out of a job without stupid evil people. Okay, here we go. Haha, hee hee ho ho. Hi. Transgender professor fails student for quoting the Bible in her essay. I really don't think the issue is quoting the Bible in the essay. Okay, here we go. Here's the essay. Boom. Can we see the original article? What's the original article she's responding to? I guess I'll mention it here. The article was very thought-provoking and caused me to thoroughly evaluate the idea of gender and the role it plays in our society. The article discussed peers using teasing as a way to enforce gender norms. I do not necessarily see this as a problem. God made male and female and made us differently from each other on purpose and for a purpose. Can I be honest with you guys? And maybe this is just my paranoia acting up, but I gotta say, I just want to ask, does anybody else have this? Does this read like an AI-generated thing to you? Like a little bit? Like there's an evenness and a perfection in the writing, but a consistent vapidness that I've come to associate with ChatGPT. I'm just saying. It reads like a kid wrote it. It reads like someone who knows how a kid writes wrote it perfectly. You know? Because here's the thing. You don't You don't tell ChatGPT to write an essay for you. You put in your notes. You put in the ideas that you have, and then you ask it to write an essay around that. I'm just speculating. I'm just saying. And this is why I'm saying, like, it's probably my paranoia. I associate this with AI now. It's fucked with my head. But I digress. I do not necessarily see this as a problem. God made male and female and made us differently from each other on purpose and for a purpose. Those mean the same thing. God is very intentional with what he makes, and I believe trying to change that would only do harm. Gender roles and tendencies should not be considered quote-unquote stereotypes. What do you mean by stereotype? What do you mean by any of this? Women naturally want to do womanly things. Women naturally want to do womanly things because God created us with those womanly desires in our hearts. The same goes for men. But why would God make two genders and then put womanly desires in the hearts of men? That doesn't seem fair. Anyways, God created men in the image of his courage and strength. Are you implying that God is capable of fear? That's blasphemy, lady. And he created women in the image of his beauty. I think you mean her beauty, madam. That just hit me out of nowhere. That is gold. Oh, I love this. 10 out of 10, honestly. You know what? Fuck it. Pass her. She wins. He intentionally created women differently than men, and we should live our lives with that in mind. It is frustrating to me when I read articles like this. I wish I knew what the article was. And discussion posts from my classmates of so many people trying to conform to the same mundane opinion so they do not step on people's toes. I think that is a cowardly and insincere way to live. This is not about the article. You are criticizing your classmates and calling them cowards because they don't agree with, I don't know what your take on the article is actually, because you haven't cited anything from the article. There's nothing in here about the article. You reference the existence of an article in the first sentence. But you don't talk about its argument at all. Why would, like, if I'm looking at this as a teacher, okay? I can probably look past someone having like overtly bigoted views if the assignment is to demonstrate that they understood the arguments in the article, because I'm grading people based on their comprehension of the article. So I can turn my brain off and that part of my brain off and look at the essay response and go, okay, there's some stuff here that's like raising my eyebrows to the back of my head a little bit. But she's engaging with the article, she understands its arguments, she recapitulates them reasonably well. And okay, she understood what the paper was saying, even if I don't find her counter argument to it to be very compelling. 80%. You can do that, right? Wasted space talking about Bible stuff, but 80% in a paper that has nothing to do with this. But 80%, sure, why not? So far, there is no content here that has anything to do with the substance of any article. This is just an imbecile ranting against her classmates because they disagree with her and she can't handle that. Like, it's pathetic. It's actually pathetic. And it's so funny, isn't it? It's like these people posture as free speech warriors, but they cannot handle disagreement. They flee from it. Oh, my paper was not recognized as golden. Help, I'm being repressed. Like, it's sad. It is important to use the freedom of speech we have been given in this given. What do you mean you aren't given freedom of speech in your country? What are you talking about? There are people right now who are going through the court system because the courts can't handle, American society cannot handle the numbers 69 in their license plates. That is too much. That is too much freedom of speech for the free speech capital, for the capital of the free world, okay? It is important to use the freedom of speech we have been given in this country by the military, and I personally believe that eliminating gender in our society would be detrimental as it pulls us farther from God's original plan for humans. God doesn't have a plan for humans in the Bible, lady. You actually should read it sometime. It's got a lot of interesting stuff in it, actually. I rather like some of it. Some of it's actually got some pretty epic poetry inside of it. Some of it's pretty awesome. It's inspired some pretty amazing art. It's inspired a lot of really interesting philosophy. It doesn't say anywhere that God has a plan for humans. That's not in there. That's not in there, lady. It is perfectly normal. In fact, by the way, it would never say humans, because most English translations, and you're definitely not reading it in any other language, most English translations render the word for people, quote unquote, as men, because it doesn't count you. You're supposed to be silent in the assembly if you actually read it. Just by the way, before you get a little too enthusiastic, maybe you should curb that a little bit in light of what the patriarch said. That is your proper place in the assembly. It is perfectly normal for kids to follow gender stereotypes, quote unquote, because that is how God made us. So here's the thing. Let's take her on her terms for a second. Let's assume God made us to follow gender stereotypes, quote unquote, okay, to follow like particular tropes that are associated with femaleness and maleness based upon what genital set you were born with. Putting stereotypes into quotes as if that's not a thing is silly. Because this is not making a statement about the naturalness or the unnaturalness of any set of behaviors or aesthetics or social positions or whatever you like. This is talking about how do you analyze the different components that make up identities in their relationship with other identities within a social matrix. That's what this is discussing. This is a psychology class. It is interested in the ways psychological aspects of our identities and our social relations are constructed and comprised. And you can talk about these categories in the context of a theistic frame of reference. You can do that. This person is so terrified of the existence of terms that trigger her, bluntly, that she cannot bring herself to engage seriously with the article. Can't do it. She can't do it. That takes a level of grit that she doesn't possess. These people are such softies. It's actually, their skin is so thin. It's actually so weak. Like, it's so weak. The people who pull these kinds of stunts, they're so weak. The reason so many girls want to feel womanly and care for others in a motherly way, do they want to feel womanly or do they feel womanly? Because wanting to feel something implies a lack of that feeling. The reason so many girls want to feel womanly and care for others in a motherly way is not because they feel pressured to fit into social norms. It is because God created and chose them to reflect His beauty and His compassion in that way. Are we going to argue this, or are we just supposed to take this, take your word for it? You who suggested earlier that God is capable of courage and therefore, by extension, fear. In Genesis, God says that it is not good for man to be alone. So He created a helper for man, which is a woman. Okay, who wrote that, though? Who wrote that thing, translated by a person you don't know, published by Zondervan, bought for about $30 US? Where'd that come from? You don't have time to explain this. This doesn't bear on the question. This doesn't bear on the article. Many people assume the word helper, quote unquote, in this context to be condescending and offensive to women. However, the original word in Hebrew is ezer kenegdo. I'll take your word for it. And that directly translates to helper equal to. Oh. Helper equal to now. Is that why the Apostle Paul tells you to be silent in the assembly? Because you're a helper equal to? Additionally, God describes himself in the Bible using ezer kenegdo, or helper. I'll take your word for it again. And he describes his Holy Spirit as our helper as well. Are you suggesting that the Holy Spirit is equal to a woman? Because that's the implication of what you're saying here. If the term ezer kenegdo means helper equal to, and therefore woman is equal to man, and God describes himself as ezer kenegdo, or helper, and therefore presumably means the same thing, equal to. You are saying that man is equal to God. Lady, you are a blasphemer, and I am 100% certain that this was using ChatGPT, because I do not believe that she wrote this. This is that sublime combination of too dumb and too perfect to be written by a person. This shows the importance God places on the role of the helper, women's roles. God does not view women as less significant than men. You asked him, did you? I want you to think about the arrogance it takes. Here's the thing. There are laws in the Bible against making graven images, against saying God's name. Imagine the arrogance it takes to just say, oh yeah, this is what God thinks. This is what God thinks. I read it in a book. This is what God thinks, guys. Imagine the arrogance it takes to say that. Even if you could verify to a certainty that the Bible was God-inspired, imagine the arrogance in assuming that you have read it so well that you can just dictate to strangers what God thinks. That's insane. I would be, because here's the actual response of somebody who believes that a God exists on this level and is capable of emotions. Terror. You treat this with fear. You fear God, as the traditional language puts it. You don't presume, even having read them directly, to be able to just tell other people God's thoughts. You can tell people, like, messages said by Christ, maybe, but you don't say, this is what God thinks. Okay, I was sort of side-eyeing God, and I'm kind of getting a certain vibe from him. That's not what you do. Just a reminder that American Christianity is actually just cultural chauvinism and nihilism, and they don't actually believe in God. Anyways. God does not view women as less significant than men. He created us with such intentionally... Oh, you know what? With such intentionally and care. That should be intentionality. Not ChatGPT. You're off the hook. Unless ChatGPT makes spelling errors, which I don't think it does. I think it's the one thing it's very good at, is not making spelling errors. He created us with such intentionality and care. Intentionally and care, pardon me. I have to stop my impulse to correct it. And he made women in his image of being a helper and in the image of his beauty. God is all about... I'm curious what the hip to waist ratio of God is now. If leaning into that role means I am following gender stereotypes, then I am happy to be following a stereotype that aligns with the gifts and abilities God gave me as a woman. Wasn't that nice? I do not think men and women are pressured to be more masculine or feminine. Why though? Like, can we like, just imagine the stupidity of this for a second. I do not think men and women are pressured to be more masculine or feminine. You know what happens to a man if they act feminine? They are called a bitch. They are told they are acting like a girl. They are called pussies, and so on and so forth. They are shamed. Arguably, that's the most prominent vocalization of gender norms in English. But moving on. I strongly disagree with the idea. Finally, we are referencing the article on page 4 at the very end. I strongly disagree with the idea from the article that encouraging acceptance of diverse gender expressions could improve students' confidence. Do you think discouraging? Do you think I'm sorry. Do you think telling people that their identities are fake or the result of mental illness or an offense against their creator is going to improve their confidence?
At Captain Jumpy super chatted $10. Einstein, while deriving the orbit of Mercury from his theory of general relativity, described the process as being able to read God's thoughts. He should have just asked this lady, saved some time.
Yeah, exactly. Einstein once said God doesn't play with dice. What this lady knew that Einstein didn't is that God actually is playing Uno. Came with his Xbox. However, pushing the lie that everyone has... Sorry, hang on, up here. Society pushing the lie that there are multiple genders and everyone should be whatever they want to be is demonic and severely harms American youth. This is something that drives me crazy. Of course there are multiple genders. The fact that people say, in all seriousness, argue that there are not multiple genders. A means they don't understand what the word multiple means because two genders is multiple. But B, gender norms, genders, are not intrinsically good. Do you think that the feminists and the critical theorists who point to the patriarchal origins and the exploitative origins of woman as a gender are trying to valorize woman as a gender? Like, think about that. So, even from the position of this girl, what she could be doing is making the argument that I think there are particular genders, particular gender norms that should be enforced because I think that this will result in better psychological outcomes for people in society. Valid argument, by the way. Not a good argument, but it's valid, worth taking seriously, worth considering. Serious people have made arguments like that. Society pushing the lie that there are multiple genders. Why is the existence of multiple genders, which are roles that are implied by a certain set of social structures, why is that the site of contestation? Well, it's because she is presuming that the existence of the concept of gender by itself somehow specifically entails trans identities. Which they do, but not for the reasons that she thinks. She thinks that the existence of multiple genders entails that there is some weird notion that sexual dimorphism is no longer a thing. The conditions of reproduction no longer require two different gametes, and so on and so forth. And you gotta wonder, like, where are they getting this from? And it's interesting because they aren't really getting it from anywhere in particular. They're all filling in the blanks in the same way. Because I grew up in a similar environment, consuming similar media. I had a similar attitude at one point in time. I'm going to talk about my background at some point in a video, because I've got an interesting relationship with this whole topic. Because, like, Fox News people and conservative talking heads, they don't read this stuff. They aren't engaged with these concepts. They are triggered by the very existence of the language. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. The existence of multiple gender identities, if she was smart and actually capable of engaging with the material, would be a good line of attack from a Christian vantage, say, or a conservative American Christian vantage, say, to attack particular social norms, to attack particular social structures. You could do that. Hey, I think the way society is structured, such that people feel like they need to adopt these kinds of identities to cope with their existence, I think that's a problem. That's a line of argument you could take. I don't agree with it. That's a line of argument you could take. There are people on both sides of the aisle who take that line of argumentation. There are communists who take that argument. There are conservatives who take that line of argument. That's a position you could take. Why does it need to be demonic? I thought mankind was sinful. Why is it not possible that social norms in a secular society do not align with your religious creeds, simply by dint of them not being rooted in them? Please read the feedback given to her by the professor on the TA2. I will. I'm very curious now. I have a suspicion. I mean, I don't know this for sure. I have a suspicion that the responses were very mild. But we'll see. We'll see how smart they played this, because, like, fundamentally, academic freedom in the US is dead. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, at the point where a difference of, not even a difference of opinion, at the point where so long as you fill your assignment with culture war, what do I want to look like culture war flags, I guess. You can now take any critical response by a teacher and use that to destroy their career. It's dead. It's over. And this is in psychology, by the way, which means psychology as a discipline in America is dead. Not everywhere else, though. So what's going to happen is you're going to get brain drain. People who are serious about this kind of thing, they're going to learn. If you want to seriously study something, you're not doing it in America. You're doing it somewhere else. That's going to be the result. Did Jordan Peterson comment on this? I am very curious if he did. I'm also not very curious if he did, because Jordan Peterson is an incompetent on a scale, on an impressive scale. Let's finish this. Society pushing the lie that there are multiple genders and everyone should be whatever they want to be is demonic and severely harms American youth. I do not want kids to be teased or bullied in school. However, pushing the lie that everyone has their own truth. Where's this coming from? Is this in the article? Saying that there are multiple genders doesn't mean that everyone has their own truth. In fact, the argument will typically be that gender is only made intelligible because of particular social relations. And so therefore, by definition, any gender that, pre-exists someone's self-invention is necessarily, and by the way, even ones that do, because you're still using language, you're still engaging with culture, you're still engaging with your society when you invent your own gender, say. It's not your own truth. It's a social truth. It's a consequence of how society works. It's a consequence of pre-existing relationships. This is not invented by anybody. They're not inventing new languages. They're not like, it's not how that works. Pushing the lie that everyone has their own truth and everyone can do whatever they want and be whoever they want is not biblical whatsoever. So? This is a psychology class, lady. Is this a Bible class? There are seminaries you can go to where they will take this as a valid argument. They are bad seminaries, by the way, because good seminaries are smarter than this. But you can go to Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry, and you can go say this is biblical, this is not biblical in your essay, and they'll just accept it with thousands of your dollars because they're Christians. The Bible says that our lives are not our own, but that our lives and bodies belong to the Lord for His glory. Okay? Good for the Bible, so what? I live my life based on this truth. Lady, you committed blasphemy multiple times in this essay. I live my life based on this truth and firmly believe that there would be less gender issues and insecurities in children if they were raised knowing that they do not belong to themselves, but they belong to the Lord. Okay, but why do you believe that? Like, here's a crazy thought. Why do you, think about the perverse order of priorities here? I believe that human life is defined by its relationship to an all-powerful God, and the proper conduct of human beings is entirely determined by what accords with that all-powerful being's plan. By the way, the reason why we accord with that plan is because it's for our own good and improves our self-esteem. Really? Why is that even a consideration? Why are you not just tossing that out and saying, hey, we are sacrificing our children's well-being for the sake of this higher truth? I respect that more, to be honest with you. It would also make them a lot more toxic and make the urgency to defeat this cultural cancer a lot stronger, but I would respect that more. It would show that they take it seriously. But this is religion as therapy. This makes you feel good. You think this makes other people feel good. That's the entire argument. This is not sitting properly. Curse my weird head shape. Like, I firmly believe there would be less gender issues and insecurities in children if they believed X, Y, and Z about the creed. Why not? This is just true. Why is that never the argument? How do you have so little confidence in this thing that you're propping up as like a culture war trebuchet that you need to scaffold it with utilitarianism? Let's take a look at the teacher's response. Trans professor's response to the essay. Here we go. Melkurth Shithe. Please note that I am not deducting points because you have certain beliefs, but instead I am deducting point for you posting a reaction paper that does not answer the questions for this assignment, contradicts itself, heavily uses personal ideology over empirical evidence in a scientific class, and is at times offensive. While you are entitled to your own personal beliefs, there is an appropriate time or place to implement them in your reflections. I encourage all students to question or challenge the course material with other empirical findings or testable hypotheses, but using your own personal beliefs to argue against the findings of not only this article, but the findings of countless articles across psychology, biology, sociology, etc., is not best practice. You argue that abiding by normative gender roles is beneficial. It is perfectly fine to believe this. It is perfectly fine to believe this. But to then say that everyone should act the same while also saying that people aren't pressured into gender expectations is contradictory, especially since your arguments reflect a religious pressure to act in gender stereotypical ways. You can say that strict gender norms don't create gender stereotypes, but that isn't true by definition. Here's the problem here, okay? This isn't written perfectly. Personality is coming through. This person is not a brilliant rhetorician. And it's like, there are a lot of people who are actually too dumb to get this. I see in the comments, a lot of people are just laughing at Turning Point USA. They're laughing at Samantha, and they should, because these people are morons. But there are a lot of people, this will just, they're not reading anything. They're not reading sentences. They're reading tone. This person is taking a didactic tone. A professor is taking a didactic tone. Your institutional superior is judging your work. How dare she? That's all they're reading. This person is being polite and professional to a fault. They're saying bitchy Walmart manager. That's it. You can say that strict gender norms don't create gender stereotypes, but that isn't true by definition of what a stereotype is. This is the part that I agree with most, by the way. She doesn't actually define any of the terms that she's talking about. Like, when you're talking about a stereotype, you're not actually saying whether a thing is good or bad. You're talking about the role it plays in discourse, the role it plays in behavior, the role it plays in society. You're talking about, like, what kind of thing is this description? What kind of thing is this image, this model, right? Please note that acknowledging gender stereotypes does not immediately denote a negative connotation. Yeah, okay, this person is awesome. This person is just great. I love this professor. Additionally, to call an entire group of people demonic is highly offensive, especially a minoritized population. You are entitled to your own beliefs, but this isn't a vague narrative of society pushes lies, but instead the result of countless years of developing psychological and scientific evidence for these claims and directly interacting with the communities involved. You may personally disagree with this, but that doesn't change the fact that every major psychological, medical, pediatric, and psychiatric association in the United States acknowledges that biologically and psychologically, sex and gender is neither binary nor fixed. I implore you, apply some more perspective and empathy in your work. If you personally disagree with the findings, then by all means share your criticisms, but make sure you do so in a way that is appropriate and using the methodology of empirical psychology as aligned with the learning goals in this class. Again, this is super reasonable. Hey, listen, I respect your opinions, Samantha, but this is a psychology class. You had particular goals in the assignment, and you had to demonstrate your grasp of the methodology. You had to demonstrate that you can talk about psychology. That's the point to this assignment. So you can do all of this. Everything you said is fine. But you need to give reasons. You need to give arguments. You need to demonstrate that you understand the stuff that you're actually engaging with, because you didn't do this here. You just said, my classmates are cowards. Gender is of the devil. You're a dirty bird. That's what that paper was. If you have any additional questions or concerns about this or would like some additional educational resources, I would be happy to discuss this further and provide you with them. She immediately ran to social media and was like, help, help, I'm being repressed. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. I love this comment here, by the way. TPUSA is so fucking stupid. They are so fucking stupid. I love this comment at the bottom. Why would you show this part? You fail propaganda class. Turning Point USA. Stop punching yourself. This is not the... Wow, these dumb fucks. This is not the writing of a person should be granted a college degree in the ideal world. Is this referring to the professor? I don't know what that's that like. Professor nailed it. Extremely detailed and good faith feedback. I don't know what they're referring to. I'm going to assume it's the professor. I love this. I'm telling you, I love this, guys. I love this so much. I love that this is now back on the menu. The rubric is next in the thread, is it? Let's take a look. Samantha's essay directions for the assignment. What? I don't see it. Oh, here we go. Full grading rubric. I guess we'll have to zoom in. Boop, boop, boop. Oh, but we can't do that because it's freaking... Okay. Okay, fine. Fine. I see how it is. Fine. We'll do it. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Okay, here we go. Here's the rubric. Is that gonna... God damn it. Oh, where's the... Okay. Shit. Hang on. One moment. Here we go. Okay. Lesson 3.3, reaction paper. Oh, see, that's the problem. Said reaction paper. Got her all confused. Reaction paper. Gender typicality, peer relations, and mental health. You must write a 650 words body of text double-spaced reaction paper demonstrating that you read the assigned article and includes a thoughtful reaction to the material presented in the article. Points will be deducted when papers are deficient in any of these areas. I will deduct 10 points if your paper is between 620 and 649 words. And I will not give credit for papers under 620 words. Papers not turned in by the deadline will not receive extra credit. I don't like these requirements. I think it's kind of silly. I would say under 1,000 words. I think that requirement is strange, but it's not worthless though, because the thing of it is like a major skill in academia is because when you're in university, especially when you're in undergrad, you are not there. You are not there to grandstand and to argue with the professor. You are there to learn. Sometimes that involves arguing with the professor, but fundamentally you are there to learn. You are there to respond to the assignments according to the directions, because that is the condition of you getting a grade. Additionally to this, word limits are meant to teach you how to write effectively, and a big part of that involves economy of writing. Now, there's some difficulties with this because sometimes it goes too far. So, for example, Judith Butler, actually a really good writer, too good a writer. She will use terms that allow her to say more with less, but as a result, she's using terms that people aren't typically very familiar with, and so Butler's writing can be very difficult because every single word has to be paid attention to. You cannot just skim like you're reading Harry Potter, where if you like zone out a little bit while you're reading, as you sometimes do, you're just kind of reading and you just kind of drift off, and then boom, I'm 3 pages in. Wait, what happened? What even happened in the last line? I don't remember. Shoot. If you do that with Judith Butler, you just won't get Judith Butler. You have to read very carefully. If you do that with like most critical theory, because they are dealing specifically with implications within language, every single word counts. And so when they're doing this with a high degree of economy, as in they are using the minimum number of words necessary to convey a thought, sometimes it can be really, really dense and really inaccessible. This 200-page book is significantly a longer read than many 400-page books for that reason, because you cannot skim. So like learning how to write that way is important. It also trains you to read that way too. 650 is very low. It's a low number of words, but whatever. Please remember that your reaction paper should not be a summary, but rather a thoughtful discussion of some aspect of the article. Possible approaches to reaction papers include a discussion of why you feel the topic is important and worthy of study or not, an application of the study or results to your own experiences, an application of the study or results to observations about other behaviors, linking the objectives or findings from the assigned article to other domains of development or other findings that we write about or discuss in class. This one here tells me everything I need to know. The expectation for this essay is that the material in the article, the actual empirical data of the article, is deployed in some capacity. Samantha doesn't deploy any material from the article. She is triggered by the inclusion of the term stereotypes. That is insufficient. 5, a suggestion for further studies or experiments that might help researchers better understand the topic being studied. 6, alternative interpretations of the researcher's findings. 7, a discussion of how development in this domain might proceed differently at other developmental stages. There wasn't even a discussion of developmental stages in there. 8, your own thoughts about how development proceeds in the domain being researched in the article. Arguably, if she had included a discussion of development at all, she might have said, well, I have a stupid teleological biblical ultimately view of how that was too much of a deep cut for some of my new viewers. I have a stupid biblical what I think is a biblical, I actually haven't read the Bible, so I don't know, but what I think is a biblical argument for, I'm assuming Samantha's role, I have read the Bible, a biblical argument for how people actually develop based on God's plan. Sure, but she didn't go there. There are other possibilities as well. The best reaction papers illustrate that students have read the assigned materials and engaged in critical thinking about some aspect of the article. Was it even in Times New Roman or Calibri? I think it was in Calibri. Does the paper show a clear tie-in to the assigned article? Nope. Does the paper present a thoughtful reaction or response to the article rather than a summary? Neither. Is the paper clearly written? Well, she should get 5 points. She should get 5 points. If she got a 0, then that is unfair. It was very clearly written. It was very clear and stupid. However, despite this, there were still spelling errors. So I think it merits at the very least a 4 out of 100. Well, I guess it's a 4 out of 25. Even better. I'm a generous god. How embarrassing for these people. Even like conservatives are looking at this and going like, how did this person get into school? This is embarrassing. Now, I can answer that though. One of the things that has happened is because the public school system has been like so horribly underfunded, and university has become such a condition of getting into any kind of, not even getting into a job, just getting into a degree where you might get a job. People are going into university and their first 2 years are like remedial high school. You will notice this if you've gone to like a regular North American university. Your first 2 years, incredibly condescending, incredibly unchallenging. I think it loses a lot of people just because it is so unchallenging. I think students need to be challenged. I think students need to be given hard stuff that helps them like feel like they're doing something difficult. I think that's motivating. Like some students struggle and they should be helped, but I think also I think there's a level of condescension to taking students as a block that you have like literally no one-to-one personalizing and curating of the curriculum for like people with different like tempos and different interests. I think you lose a lot of very talented, very intelligent people simply because they get to university and they realize, oh, they think I'm a moron. I'm going to spend years just doing this basic bitch bullet, like boring loser stuff. And it's just awful. The writer of the paper was in KKA, a sorority that requires a high GPA to get into and stay in. She could do the coursework, but just decided to make her career by hating on her professor. Possibly. I hear they're looking for, I hear they need some replacement staff at TPUSA. Not a job I'd be envying right now, personally, but that's just me. I do think she's genuinely dumb, but also think she wrote bad on purpose. I suspect what happened was she wrote this as well as she could, and she immediately went whining to, I don't know, some conservative student union or something when this happened. Because these people are pathetic and they are perpetual victims. You know all that weird stuff they say about SJWs and leftists? Oh, they're all perpetual victims. Yeah, no. Conservatives and American Christians are perpetual victims. Perpetual victims. The whole world's after them. Everyone just wants to. Everyone just hates on them. Just everyone's. It's the world's so unfair. It's so hard. It's so hard, guys. It's pathetic. Her mother is a lawyer who defended the J6 rioters and is hardcore MAGA. Oh, well then that explains why she was able to make such a big stink about this.